What's going on, y'all? KMBest here, back with Lambie series on his channel for this episode of 8 Cubes, and we're going to start out with what Lambie is terming the Hope Effect, as the release of Hope Summers has injected a very consistent ramp package into the metagame, seeing use across multiple various decks. We're going to go over some of those decks, of course, as well, but let's talk with her general effect on the metagame. Lambie, let's break down the Hope Effect.
Right, so she's indeed a new hope for the meta game. I just had to say that. But okay, so basically what hope is in general right now is that she allows a lot of decks to play a bit, I would say, greedier, and at the same time without much compromise, because at the core, hope is a 3/4. It's like a decent thing to play on turn 3 or whatever, or 4. But what she does is she lets decks scale higher and include more greed options that I've seen. Without going into too specifics about like specific archetypes or what, but I've seen a lot of decks include a few more 6s and more 5s, just because that you can ramp out like on turn 3 you can play a 1-cost card only on turn 4, and then you just go crazy with like 5s and 6s. So it's very interesting because like last time in the past, most decks that could play that many 5s and 6s were quite literally Thanos decks, right? Or ramp decks, because they played specific cards like Time Stone, Electro, Corvus. But now this is one of those cards, like you can play this in most decks and there is like little downside. And I feel like this is in general one of the more, I think, game-breaking season pass cards we've had in a while. Obviously, Miss Marvel and Elsa were also game-breaking, but like this is one of them as well, in my opinion. What do you think, KM?
I actually take issue with that, right? Because, like, all right, you're like, this is one of the more game-breaking season passes we've had in a while. My instinct is, if I ask you to stack rank Loki on release, Miss Marvel on release, Elsa on release, and Hope Summers right now, she would be fourth.
Okay, yeah, she's okay. Even if she's not fourth, Loki is first. That's why I'm thinking.
Right, but like she's definitely fourth though, right? Like
okay,
she's
fine.
she's absolutely fourth, and like, you know, maybe that's the debatable. Like maybe you don't want anything in that range. You can talk me into that, but like when you talk about like one of the more powerful season passes we've had lately, like she's, if you actually really think about it, right? Here are the last season passes we've had in order since September, right? Loki, Elsa Bloodstone, Miss Marvel, Sebastian Shaw, Kyera, Black Swan, and then the current Hope Summers, right? Of those, she's definitely better than Kyera, Black Swan, and Sebastian Shaw, and definitely worse than Loki, Elsa, and Miss Marvel. So, you know, she's the exact middle of season passes right now. It's actually kind of crazy. Like, she's a really strong card, but I think that she's stronger in a more fun way than those cards. Like, it's not like you're just getting run over by Miss Marvel or whatever, and now she's sort of democratized the experience of, you know, something that was limited only to Thanos decks for a while is like the experience of playing, like, you know, Doctor Doom into Magneto. Like, that was something that that's something now everyone can do. Everyone can enjoy that experience now. And so I think like Hope Summers is net good for the metagame. She is allowing other decks to catch up to where Thanos is. And yes, she's good in Thanos, but she's also allowing other things to have that kind of experience. I personally think that compared to the 3 super busted season pass cards, she comes up a little bit short. And compared to the 3 that were pretty mediocre, it looks very good. Good season pass card, interested in keeping on experimenting with her. And I honestly have a question for you, Lambie. If she was a 3/3, do you think everyone would be reacting to her the same way?
I think maybe initially no, but after you've tried the card, I would definitely still play her as a 3/3. Like her impact, like you said, she like we mentioned, like she allows the game to be like she allows other decks to be what Thanos was always doing for the last 1 year, and I feel like it opens up a new dimension of like exploration into like how you can build your decks, and I think it's really interesting.
I agree. I'm just like, because that was one of the later changes they made. She was a 3/3 and then they made her a 3/4, and I'm kind of wondering, you know, they're smart for that, right? Because you look at her and you see 3/4 and you're like, I'm buying that. But if you looked at her and you saw 3/3, it would be like, okay, we have to figure out how good this is by playing it, and it turns out, you know, really good. But I think that was a pretty clever change that they made.
Agreed.
On that note, I think we both agree that Hope Thanos is quite powerful right now. Like, yes, she's not as good as Lockjaw, but her outcomes are more controlled. And one of the things that I've been really struck by playing Hope Thanos is just how synergistic she is with other ramp cards, right? So like Hope plus Wave, sometimes that enables you to just play 2/6 drops for 8, right? Like that's the kind of thing you can do. And that kind of synergy with the ramp cards that are already or would normally be superfluous in a different ramp deck is super sick to me. It reminds me of Lockjaw, where like you'd be able to go Lockjaw into Wave plus Stone, into Big Guy plus Stone, that kind of stuff where your multiple plans work together was part of why old Thanos was so good. And like you get that with Hope. You really do. I had a game where I played Hope Summers into Wave plus Time Stone on the Hope lane, and just I had the ability to play 2/6 drops on turn 5. Like that is something else. This is a very strong deck right now. Do you think it's better than the Lockjaw version or worse?
Okay, so I just want to firstly mention that, right, we talked about in the first point that like we let a lot of decks play like the Thanos style after Hope was introduced into the game. But well, Thanos itself is the Thanos, right? And it has an additional time stone as well, plus now Hope. So it's definitely gonna do the Thanos thing better than other decks. But anyway, because it's Thanos. But yeah, so just wanted to say that it's very weird why I feel this way. I think maybe it's not really weird, but like, I feel this way about Hope Thanos, which is I feel like Thanos Lockjaw was one of the decks that was like very scary in its original form because like the high rolls are insane, right? And it's not even that inconsistent per se. Whereas with Hope Thanos, it's a bit different, where your variance is a lot lower, but at the same time, it's way more reliable of a deck, right? Because
Yeah.
you are playing from hand very often, which means when you see the Hope, you look at your hand, you know your curve is gonna be like 5, 6, 6, 5, 5, 6 or whatever, that kind of thing. So like it's less like high rolly, but you kind of can plan your turns with Hope. And based on that, I actually don't hate this version of Thanos at all. I actually kind of like it. Like my win rate is actually pretty good with this as well. I'm not saying it's like better than Lockjaw, but I think it's actually pretty good as well because like it's a different avenue of like scamminess, which is like you plan consistently for a different kind of like scaling, right? Not with one cost stones, but with actually playing the big stuff from your hand more consistently and more often. And I think the current build that we are on right now, I don't know if everyone's on the same thing, but like Car Obsidian,
Yeah.
Scar, like it just curves so beautifully. One thing that I realized, I think I saw from somewhere on your stream or whatever, but you were playing Professor X and cutting Devil Dinosaur. I want to know what's
Yes.
your opinion on this interaction and choice.
Hope really wants you to go for 6s, right? Hope is super pushing you towards cheating out a 6 on 5 as opposed to cheating out a 5 on 4, right? And so
Okay.
the Professor X is there for A, sometimes you just get a free win out of that. B, he's your backup Kyera, right? So like you cheated out a 5 on 4. You go like wave into Blob on like a Nexus and then you play Professor X, right? Like he is the guy that does that. Obviously, he's not very good. The other thing I noted, well, he's not very good. He's just like, he's not overly exciting. It's Professor X. He's a 5/1. Like it's like okay. But also like okay, there's this ability to win games against, Phoenix Force and Hela that you just sort of get for doing that, right? And the other thing is if you're not cheating out a Devil Dino, and for the most part you are very incentivized away from cheating out 5s. If you are going to go to cheat something out, I want that something to instantly win a lane. That's what Professor X is doing. Like it is, I do not consider it worthwhile to get off curve, off my Hope curve, off whatever that is to play a 5. Because so much of what this deck does is 6s, and the 5 stuff is only good if you go 5 into 5, right? So I need to have Dino and Vision in order for that play to even come close to making sense. And so if I am going that far off curve and giving up my ability most of the time to cheat out a 6 on 5, I need enormous payoff. In addition, just, having Hope in the deck means you have a lot more energy. You end up playing a few more cards. Dino ends up a little bit smaller. But it's mostly that Thanos is not built for this 5/5 stuff anymore. We're not doing that anymore. We're doing 6s now. We've moved one spot up the curve.
I just thought of something that
Mm,
might help me a lot in the Snap Fan World Championship, but this video is gonna release right before that anyway, so it's fine. But
okay.
anyway, no, yeah. Anyway, no. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that like Professor X is very interesting versus other Hope decks as well, because the thing is, they
Yes.
want to play on the Hope, right? They
Mhm.
want to play on the Hope, right? So
Yes. And so you get to just be
it's
like,
quite
what up,
yeah,
dude?
yeah, yeah. Like the chance that you actually like fail in that YOLO prof is a bit less once you see the hope, because you know they will want to play on the hope. So it's kind of
hard.
interesting there. Yeah, so but like I'm not okay, so I'm not convinced I don't want Devil Dinosaur yet, but I'm kind of a bit convinced that Professor X is like good, because like you mentioned in the because some of my matchups when I'm playing Hope Thanos is like, oh, the Hela just goes too tall, I can't play, I can't win, or like the Nimrod Shuri stuff, I still sometimes cannot win. So maybe the prof actually just hedges a little bit. But of course, if I'm not cutting Dino, I don't know what I'm cutting, so I'm gonna experiment and see where we go from there.
Yeah, I just like, one of the things I noticed was like, I hate doing Time Stone Dino if I'm not following it up with another 5. And so I just don't have enough 5s for that to make sense the way the deck is actually constructed right now. So we're just gonna, if I'm going off curve, I'm doing it to instantly win a game. That's pretty much it. Let's talk about Pixie. I have a Pixie deck I've been playing. It is slapping Pixie and Annihilus and Sentry into Loki, courtesy of a player named Abe. I have been remarkably successful with this absolute pile. I have absolutely no idea if it means Pixie is good. I have absolutely no idea if it means the deck is good. I have not fully put enough reps in to figure that out, but what I can tell you is Pixie doesn't really seem good anywhere else. Like, she seems pretty bad every other place I've seen her, and a lot of that is because she sort of creates a metagame that deals with what she does, which is to say, like, Pixie shows up and then, you know, well, okay, I guess I'll just play Mobius, right? And so like people are playing like Pixie She-Not or whatever, and it's like, okay, well, you die, the game is over, right? Like, I play a Mobius and the game is over. And so there's just this weird thing that happens when a card like this comes out, and it happened with Annihilus too, where like they create the metagames that are best against them. And I still have a little bit more hope for Pixie. The Loki shell actually just makes a ton of sense to me, because it's basically like, all right, you know, what else are we doing on turn 2, right? Like, Mirage, who cares? Like, I would rather just play this and have some extended range, right? You get to play like, you know, sometimes I'll play like, you know, Pixie Mobius, that's my 2/3, and then we'll like do a Loki thing, and it's like, you have literally no idea what I'm gonna do now. You have absolutely no idea. You have no clue what my range is at any point. You have no way of knowing that, because you don't know A, what kind of weird garbage I put in my deck, and B, what actually came out of that. I can't say it's like the most compelling thing I've ever played. Like, but I think, you know, generally speaking, there's a lot worse things you can do with Pixie than just like slapping it in Loki.
Yeah, so I actually wanted this topic here because just want to hear KM's opinion on like this whole Pixie thing that he's been like trying or like experiencing with the other deck lists. I personally have had zero success with Pixie yet. Like I don't feel satisfied with any of the Pixie decks that I have tried or made, and I know how to make decks. It's just that Pixie has been one of those. Pixie has been one of those cards that like I feel like I can crack, and I feel like I am like eventually gonna do something with it. But now I have like no idea, man. I have like no idea what I'm gonna do with this card. And like, okay, I guess there are ways we can experiment with this in the future. But I can safely tell you that like every Pixie idea that I've seen, I've just like, okay, not interested phase. But like, you know, well, let's see whether we can get anything out of potential future card releases and her and whatnot, you know.
I'll let you know if this ends up being promising. It's definitely the most promising Pixie deck I've played, right? Okay. But that's like a pretty low bar. Like, most promising Pixie deck is like, I don't know about that one, right? Like, it does sort of make sense to me conceptually, but there's still like metagame considerations to think of. And obviously, like, you know me, I'm a sucker for like the ability to play Loki.
Yes.
Like, these are like, that's just like all my favorite cards in the same deck. You're telling me I can play Loki and Annihilus in the same deck? Oh my God, I'm sold, right? Like, it's very easy to convince me of that kind of stuff. So yeah, grain of salt.
Yeah, having said that, I think our next topic will be really interesting in terms of success.
We talked about the shimmy, Shuri Nimrod, a little bit jokingly on our previous episode on my channel, and I think it's time to clarify that, you know, Shuri Nimrod Phoenix Force, in my opinion, is currently occupying the Hela slot in the metagame, where it is just this unaccountably large combo deck that no one is really playing the interaction for, and when they do the thing, they're gonna beat your ass. Shuri Nimrod into, like, you can pass 3 turns, play Shuri Nimrod, boom, boom, and you will win the game against most things that are happening right now. That's a really compelling thing to have in your back pocket when your first plan is some Phoenix Force garbage that will also win the game very easily. 2 combo decks, both well positioned, absolutely mashed together. I consider Phoenix Force a legit threat right now.
So the thing about this whole Shuri into Nimrod thing, I think we also mentioned this a little bit on the other video, which is it's been around for a really long time. And
Yes.
that doesn't well, but my point is that it's been around for a really long time, and every time it works, it always just destroys the the opponent, right? Like it's the same thing, like whatever meta, as long as you don't really get Professor X, like Shuri into Nimrod, and then you just put a fear of God into your opponent on turn 6. Like it's the same. It's been this way for a while. I think it's like super relevant right now also because there's like no other like massive power output deck I mean
Yes.
Tribunal and Hela technically, but this one probably does it like more and like with more stats, I would say, and with not that much difficulty as well, because like KM mentioned, right, because you have two game plans. You have the Phoenix Force game plan, which will win you the game if you curve with it, and you have the Shuri Nimrod game plan, which you can draw into and still like stay in the game for like the first 3 turns. Like let's say someone snaps you. I realized this with this deck. Like let's say someone snaps you on like turn 1 and you're holding the Shuri. You are like super incentivized to just stay, because the moment you draw the Nimrod,
It's over.
you snap them back and they are like, what did you do? Nothing. Why should I leave? I wouldn't. Shuri
Yep.
Nimrod, bye-bye. So this is a very interesting deck because I played against a player that like he's called Finn on my server a lot, that he does this thing whereby I don't know if he's just very used to playing this deck or whatever, but like I feel like as long as he has one of the big pieces, Shuri or Nimrod, and I snap him early, he's just gonna stay, because it's like 3-4 turns to actually draw the other piece, and when you draw the other piece, you just flip the game on its head, which is very scary, right? Because you can't exactly aggressively snap them, but if you don't, they will just stay and draw the pieces and you will die anyway. So like, so I think this dynamic of this shimmy deck, I can't believe I'm saying it shimmy, but this dynamic of this shimmy deck actually is very scary, because you are very allowed to stay when people snap you with this deck, because the payoff of drawing the other card is insta win a lot of the other time.
One of the funniest things about the deck is just how dumb you can be with snaps and have it be correct.
Yeah.
Like you can be so dumb about your snaps. Like it's turn 4, I'm snapping this Shuri, and it's like, well, you're right. Like, you're absolutely right. You successfully stole a cube from me. You got me.
Yeah, you're also super incentivized to just stay versus anything. Like it's very like close your brain Marvel style, right? Like if you're holding Shuri or Nimrod and then they snap you on turn 1, you're like, but if I draw the other piece, I still win. So you just stay. And then whatever they're playing, most of the time, if it's not a Prof X, you just win if you draw the other piece. So
it's so sick. It rocks so hard. It's like I personally do not think decks like this should exist. You know how I felt about Hela. I feel the same way about this. Like that's just how I feel. I get it. But if it is going to exist, at least having one that's extremely funny and a little bit more face up is vastly preferable to something like Hela, in my opinion.
Agreed. Yeah, like I'd rather, okay, I wouldn't say I'd rather lose to this, but like I kind of know when I might lose to this. Instead of like versus Hela, there's like multiple permutations of whether you might lose to the stuff spawning in the right places. With that being said, let's move on to Hela Ramp.
Let's move on to Hela Ramp.
Right, so Hela Ramp is really interesting. It's basically the same Hela Lockjaw deck, but a lot of the versions of the deck that I've seen don't play Lockjaw anymore. Instead, they just they go all in on like playing Corvus on turn 3, discarding 2 cards, hopefully not Hela. And then they pass turn 5, they play Infinite on 6, then they play Hela on 7. Or they go the other way, they play Hela on 6, and then their Scar's like almost free if they revive anything big. Then they play Scar plus, I don't know, something on turn 6, and they just win anyway. So like, the point I'm saying with this deck is that like, when I play against this deck, it's very scary still, like how it used to be, because the moment Corvus doesn't discard a Hela on turn 3, you literally die to like most scenarios in the deck. And also now they actually have like, sometimes they play Black Knight, so they just go Black Knight on turn 1, randomly get a Black Cat discarded, then you have your turn 4 play set out, even if you don't have like the Corvus on turn 3, and then you can still play Hela on turn 6. Like, as much as I want to tell you that like Hela is less consistent, I feel like as long as you don't actually discard Hela, okay, obviously, but like you have a lot of ways to win with this deck, which is really scary because it's not difficult to pilot at all. It's not down to you, it's down to whether you discard the wrong stuff, right? So I'm a bit afraid that this might be popular still, because like we mentioned in the previous topic about Shuri Nimrod, that one I know when to leave. This one I kind of know, but I don't want to, because if the panouts don't go according to them, they still lose. But if it goes according to them, I will die, and that's like 8 cubes. So yeah, I'm a bit afraid that Hela will still be as popular as it used to be. What do you think?
I think that Hela ends up in a little bit of an awkward situation if something like PF picks up in popularity, because I don't think it beats that nut draw, right? Like Hela having to deal with that kind of stuff, doing what it does to everything else to it, is a situation it hasn't really been in for a while. Like Hela has been, I'm prohibitively tall and enough people are playing Enchantress, so Tribunal can't do it to me, right? And now, though, like, nobody's playing Shadow King. Nothing is stopping Phoenix Force from doing this Phoenix Force stuff except, you know, me and my Professor X and Thanos, right? Like, me and, like, two other dudes, right? Like, it was Dot Geo and Big Baby are, like, the other two people doing that, right? Like, it's
just chilling with dudes.
It's like me and, like, two other dudes. And so, like, if that's not really going to be adopted by everyone, it could be an issue. And Phoenix Force, I do think, like, when Phoenix Force does the thing, it's going to beat Hela. And because of that, Hela ends up with like a matchup spread that's a little more awkward than its previous matchup spread. In addition, like when Thanos does some really dumb Thanos stuff, it can actually just like straight up have more points than Hela. Like you just do something really stupid with Thanos some percentage of the time. And that has not changed. Like what Thanos has actually effectively lost is like Kyera. That's the card Thanos has actually lost in all these changes.
Yeah.
And that didn't matter in the Hela matchup at all. So it's kind of just doing the same thing it was already doing in that matchup. And it's just like, oh, well, that's kind of nice, right? You just get that for free. Cool. All right, enjoy that. And that is, I think Hela got worse and got less well positioned. If it does still manage to succeed, I mean, like, I'm not saying I'll be surprised, but I'm saying it has more to contend with than it previously did.
Fair point.
Silky Smooth is in a very interesting position. I know that Big Baby took Silky Smooth to rank 1, and I know this because he beat me for 4 cubes to get to rank 1. Those are my cubes that put him there. I also know that his build of the deck is quite different, or maybe, you know, like 2 cards different, right? He's not playing like terrible Craven Silk stuff. He's not playing like, you know, Elsa Bloodstone. He's just playing, you know, Miss Marvel like a smart person would, right? Like he's just playing good cards in his deck full of good cards. But the real reason this section is here is because, yes, Hope Summers has helped the Silky Smooth archetype as it was reasonably expected to do, right? Like it has given it access to early Doctor Dooms and things of that nature. And because of that, it ends up in a spot where it is competing, in my opinion, with discard for deck that is mostly invulnerable to Shang-Chi and still puts a lot of points on the board. And I want to know whether you think Hope Smooth or discard will end up being the better iteration of that concept.
So this deck is essentially what Silky Smooth was in the past, not so much for the movement stuff, but more for the fact that it's like a bit immune to tech, right? Which is why we brought the discard into the picture as well, because both decks are relatively immune to tech. Like for discard, outside of Enchantress, nothing really hurts the deck of sorts. And with this deck, you don't really get to shang it, you don't get to end it. We gave this Hope Smooth its own particular segment because I feel like it really highlights what we mentioned in the first topic of like being able to like play slightly bigger cards just because of the hope being in the deck. And by slightly bigger, I mean like it's everybody's favorite Doctor Doom. You get to play this card again in like many different like decks. And one of them is this like mid-rangey shell. Personally, because I have not experienced like the new versions of this like mid-rangey smooth deck, I think maybe the discard one sounds like it still has a bit more points, but the general idea with what we are talking about here is just that you get to play a bit of a higher curve with Hope, and also you get to be a bit immune to tech with Hope Smooth. So that's a recipe for a definitely good deck. It just sounds a bit fair in my mind compared to like things like Thanos, but I guess comparing it to Thanos is a bit not too fair because Thanos is just like crazy OP right now, I feel. So I want to see where this goes with this mid-range style of deck. Maybe there's a way to like make it a bit more like consistently powerful, but for now I think it's just a good deck, but I don't see it like popping off too hard in the meta at this point in time.
Marvel Snap may be getting a gold pass. Snap.fan has data mined plans for a gold pass where you pay $5 at the beginning of the month. You get a set number of gold, and then you get 50 gold each time you log in. It ends up being a total of about 1,800 gold per month for about $5. Now, normally we wouldn't be reporting on data mined content in that way. However, when Jeff Hoagland posted it on Twitter, he got a response from Steven Jarrett, who works at Second Dinner as a product guy, that said, looks like an interesting offer, right? And I'm not gonna like, obviously that doesn't mean like, okay, confirmed or anything like that. But I definitely, reacted with like several eye emojis. Like that is actually like a very interesting thing. If Steven is like super debating me here, I tip my hat to you, Steven, I suppose. But I'm just sort of interested to know what you think of the idea of a pass like this, where it's basically a very cheap gold in exchange for logging in, and especially releasing it in the context of an ongoing, I guess, low hum furor of there's really haven't been a good gold bundle in a while. So what are your thoughts on it?
So essentially what we are saying here, it's like a login bonus, right? Like every day when
Yes.
you log in, you pay like I don't know, a sum of money a month, and then you log in and you get gold, whatever amount of gold. Well, I don't think it was specified yet, right? So I think
1,800 total, so 50 each day.
100 total, 50 each day for logging in. Well, it really depends on the price point of this bundle. I don't actually know the exact comparisons. Maybe if it's like what, like a few dollars, I guess it's definitely worth
$5
it.
was the data mine price.
$5, 1,800 is actually like for the price that you pay in the shop to buy gold. I think it's actually worth it.
Yeah.
But of course, the upside slash downside here is you are incentivized slash like forced to log in. But I guess if you're being asked to log in just to log in, I don't think it's that much of an issue, especially from mobile. And also it also makes you like potentially just log in and then you're like, hey, since I'm in the game, might as well play a few games. So
I
like
got
I
your
think that's the
ass.
idea.
Yeah.
That's like the idea behind this. And I think it's fine. Like honestly, in terms of just the pure value of the gold for like $5 for 1,800 gold, I think that's like worth already. And then secondly, of course, you are incentivized to log in, which is not difficult to do on mobile. And of course, then it also drives traffic to the game, right? From the Second Dinner's side, because it makes people want to log in. So I think it's good actually. I think it's all around really quite good. Like the more I think about it, like as I've been talking and listening to you, I never because I never heard about this until right before our recording, and then the more I think about it, I feel like I think this is actually a very good like offer personally, and like from both sides, it's very win-win from like both players and like the publisher side. So all right, so we've down to our final topic, and it actually has nothing to do with Marvel Snap at all, but I think it's definitely very important to mention, which is about an hour before this recording, we realized that the great manga artist Akira Toriyama has just passed away. And I just want to say he has been a huge, huge, huge part of my childhood. Like I know we have like Pokemon and stuff like that in our childhood in the 90s kids, right? For me it was Dragon Ball, it was Dragon Quest. All his art was a big part of my, like, even now, even recently I just bought a Dragon Quest game which featured most of his art anyway. So like he's been a really big part of my childhood. He's been influential to other like manga artists, like those that you know as well, like Naruto, One Piece and stuff like that. Like he's been super influential in the like manga and like anime scene. So just want to put a spot here to mention that rest in peace Akira Toriyama. Everyone loves you. You will be missed. I hope hope everything will be well for everyone else involved. But yeah, just wanted to put this topic here.
Yeah, I had the same experience. I still like viscerally remember where I was when I watched Goku turn Super Saiyan against Frieza. I remember hoisting an exercise ball above my head and throwing it at my friends pretending it was a spirit bomb. I remember pretending I could go Super Saiyan 5 because one of my friends said they went Super Saiyan 4. Like this is like formative to me. Akira Toriyama's work was, as cheesy as it sounds, very important to me as a kid. And I just wanted to use this time to venture my appreciation for what he did and for his work, and to say what a tragedy it is that we lost him today. Thank you so much for watching 8 Cubes. I know that was a bit of a somber note to end on, but frankly, we both were touched enough by Toriyama and his work to feel that was worth discussing, at least in this context. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I've been KMBest. He's been Lambie Series. You will be able to catch the next episode of this show on my channel. Remember to subscribe here. Lambie, take us out.
All right. If you like what you just saw, you like what you just heard, like, comment, subscribe, and also find KM Best on the next video on his channel. We'll see you guys real soon. Bye bye.